Hello, everyone, and welcome. Thank you for joining our event today, where we will be speaking to Amit Kalarekal, founder and CEO of Fisherman. Now, during this hour, we'll learn more about why website design matters, common design mistakes and how to fix them, designing your website so it can be found on the internet. That's always something that I get a lot of questions on. And of course, to wrap it up, we'll have a 20-minute Q&A session to answer your most pressing questions. And yes, we did have a little bit of fun with the title, didn't we? So does your website really need a little bit of help? And if so, you've come to the right percent. And 48% of you said that you do believe that your website needs a little bit of a redesign. So we're going to learn from our expert Amit today. Before we get started, just a few event guidelines. We always start events offering educational component, and towards the end, we'll be sharing resources that will help you with your business and any challenges that you may have. Also, towards the end, we'll be providing you a lot of different links where you can, connect with like-minded individuals, learn about our future Alignable events, and learn about, Fisherman's promotional offers just specifically for our Alignable members. So be on the lookout for that. Also wanted to draw your attention to our Q&A box. If you have any questions, make sure to pop them in that Q&A box, because towards the end, we're going to pull questions from there and ask Amit these specific questions so you can learn from him on what you can do to, give your website a bit of a boost. And also for those of you who are wondering, yes, the recording, the website is being recorded, and we will send that to you within 24 hours of our session. So excellent. I think we can get started. Amit, thank you so much for joining us today. It is such a pleasure to have you here, and I can't wait to get started because I love your product and the services that you offer small businesses. It's absolutely wonderful. Can you tell us a little bit about yourself and your company?
Yeah, absolutely. First of all, thank you, Victoria, for having me, and to the whole Alignable team and everybody who's joined this session. The fact that you're here and wanting to learn more about how to give your website an upgrade or best practices around design shows that you really care and you're making the right types of investment already. So this is the great first step to join a session like this, and I'm really excited to share some tidbits that I can here and a little bit more about the company. So to your question, a little bit of background on myself. I'm one of the founders of a company called Fisherman. As I was mentioning in the intros, we're headquartered in Boston, but we've got customers in all 50 states, in Canada, in the UK, and a few other countries. And so, we've been around for a few years, but prior to Fisherman, I was doing a lot of freelance web design and development, and particularly for small businesses. And time again, just came across a lot of different, issues that folks were having with their website piece, primarily because the reason they started their business and what they really wanted to focus on was not their website. It was, if it was a brick and mortar business, it was that in-person service. There's so many operational hurdles, hiring. There's so many challenges that exist for a small business owner. And a lot of times the website, the digital marketing, digital presence overall was an afterthought. And so after a long time working sort of as an agency, really decided to try to figure out how to build a solution and a company that could solve some of those pain points that we were seeing. And in particular, we wanted to build a solution that would help folks who were not the most technically savvy, didn't know exactly how to design digitally themselves, but didn't want to go pay the agency price to have someone do it all for them. And so for us, the main premise was there's a lot of no code tools out there, but code and no code even was still a little bit too technically complex for some folks. And the premise for Fisherman was, can we build something that is really no effort? And we can show a little bit of the product later on.
Yeah.
But essentially we can take just a business's name and address, and from there, our software and then our team will help to automatically build and maintain a complete website for a business owner. And we're really focused on a few different verticals, like the food and beverage space with restaurants, and then the beauty space with salons and spas, and a few other categories. And our goal is really to help people focus on their business. Our software, our team can handle the rest for them.
Oh my gosh, I think that's absolutely wonderful. And I can't wait to sample when you share your screen and kind of walk us through that. So in your experience, what are some of the mistakes you've seen small business owners do when it comes to their website?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, there's a lot of different things that come up. I'd say the number one issue is not designing their website for mobile devices. We
Oh,
see it when we look at the analytics across all of our customer websites, and it's consistently over 2/3 of users that are looking online and looking at websites from their mobile devices. And so being able to make sure that the website is specifically designed for mobile. There's some best practices we can talk about for mobile, but making sure that you're at least looking, and testing the website from your mobile device, from different friends' phones, since different phones have different screen sizes and render the display a little bit differently. But really making sure that it's designed for it. You'll maybe hear a term, mobile optimization. As an example, making sure that the website is designed for mobile. A lot of websites that we come across before we work with clients are not. They're structured for, the desktop computer, and the entire user experience, not just the design, but even that user experience of how people click through your website is very different for mobile. So that's a big one we see. Another one is just throwing a lot of information on different tabs. And sometimes you'll see a website with 10, 15 different tabs, and that can be a natural decision because you have a lot of information that you want to make sure your potential customers and users can see. But that actually has an inverse effect where there's some decision paralysis, and having too much information on too many tabs can make it harder for someone to decide what to do. Unlike someone walking into your storefront, when you're looking on a digital storefront, you only have someone's attention for a couple seconds, a few seconds before they decide whether or not they're going to leave. And so having a lot of content right out of the gate can be a big deterrent for people to stay on your site. And a few other things, along that line are consistency for color and for text.
right.
So, this is a tricky one. This is where it gets a little bit more subtle, but um, you might see a website have 5-6 different colors, and maybe you feel that represents your personality or your business's personality, but there are certain schemes that you'll want to use for both color and for font, for text, and from whether that's sizing or dimensionality. If you're talking about header fonts or body fonts, we can talk through this in a little bit more detail, but you want to stick with some level of color scheme. You want to
Mm.
pick dominant and secondary and accent colors. And then you want to make sure that you're staying consistent. Consistency is the key. You can decide what to do, and as long as it looks good on mobile and you're consistent across the board, that's most important. What you don't want is to have 10 different text sizes and different colors that are slightly different from one another appearing throughout the site, because it can be very visually deterring.
Yeah.
Um,
It seems
similar.
like
Oh yeah, go ahead,
No,
Victoria.
I was going to say, it seems like there's a whole science and
Yes.
strategy. It's not just putting up words and some visuals. There's, our human mind, and I've seen that there's technology out there, where our eyes typically go when we open up a website, and, there's an entire knowledge base behind it, which I think, that you and your team can provide our small businesses. Now, you've given us a lot of different examples of, maybe things that you've seen and mistakes you've seen in your past with websites. And you've also provided and, or alluded to a couple of, tips on there, like, making sure that your color scheme is consistent and your font is consistent. Are there any other best practices that you can offer our members to help them overcome these challenges that they may have in their websites?
Yeah, absolutely. So we can go through some of the issues that I brought up. The first one being mobile. Like I mentioned, you want to really design your website and optimize it for mobile. You can have slightly different designs for different screen sizes, which is the recommended approach. But one very specific tip is on mobile, you want to avoid any horizontal scrolling. So a default, if you've designed the website for a computer screen, is you have
Yeah.
a lot of content that's both lateral as well as vertical. But on a mobile screen, you want to really stack your content more vertically, since most people are used to scrolling up and down. So avoiding any horizontal scrolling, since it's an unnatural behavior, and it can also force the sizing of your content to be a little out of whack. So that's one specific one.
Amit,
Jump in.
just to jump in there, I did not know that there's multiple screen sizes.
Yes.
I thought you do one for Android and you do one for Apple and you're good to go. So I think that's one tip that I just learned in listening to you speak here, is that there really is different types of screen sizes that people need to account for when they're developing their websites, to make sure that when a person goes on mobile, which everyone does mobile nowadays, that everything, the words are not going to split up in weird areas, and it's just going to be really tight when you look at it, and everything's going to make sense as you're scrolling there. So that's great.
Correct. And it's not just device types, it's also the browsers that people are searching from.
My goodness.
So even someone, if you're searching on a web, you're looking at a website from Chrome as a browser versus Safari versus Firefox, all of those have slightly different standards. And so, it's important to be able to look at how your website looks on each of those, and making slight tweaks accordingly. And another thing with the tabs that I mentioned, in order to avoid having kind of an infinite number of tabs where you have that decision paralysis, is you can try to condense those tabs into drop downs. That's one basic thing. I think any marketer out here would recommend you just condense the content as much as possible. Go with as little copy as you need on your site, in order to really tell that compelling message, especially on mobile devices. People are not, they don't want to read that much content. And especially because on their mobile device, they're used to just really quickly glimpsing through content, looking at images primarily. They're very, focused on a very particular action. They're not necessarily browsing as much. And so it's important to really capture that attention, limit the content. But if you want to have more tabs, try to figure out ways to consolidate into drop downs, so that that first impression that someone has is, they can make a decision from fewer choices.
Yeah, love that.
Yeah. So, I mean, I can go on. I mean, I think with readability readability is a big, theme overall. And I think in general, another tool that can be to your advantage is using white space on your site. So trying not to have too much content really condensed in one place, using more white space, opting for a slightly larger font size in some cases. And again, fewer words can really help, where simple is key here, especially since people are not reading everything.
Mhm.
And a couple of things that I'd make it clear, making sure that it's easy for people to get in touch with you, and ultimately deciding what is that call to action. What is the number one thing you want someone who's landing on your website to do with you? So
Yeah,
that's what they call a call to action. And so, if you're a restaurant, that number one thing might be order online, or it might be to call to place an order, or to
right.
make a reservation, and really highlighting that one action and driving behavior towards it.
That's
So that's another recommendation I'd say, to kind of revolve and focus the user's attention on that primary call to action.
so, oh my gosh, Amit, you have so much information to share, which is great. I know our audience is just eating it up. But let's take a little bit and let's talk about, fishermen, like in what situations should a business use fishermen versus maybe using a DIY tool like Squarespace, or maybe working with an agency? Like what situations do you think? I know you mentioned some key retail, company, industries that you're going to be focusing on, but can you talk a little bit more about that?
Yeah, absolutely. Anyone who's tried to make a website on their own or looked into options knows that there are a ton of
Yeah,
choices. There are thousands and thousands of ways that you can go to make your website, but I'd say they generally break down into two categories. There is the DIY, like you mentioned, do it yourself category, and then there's more of that agency style category. And there's pros and cons to each of those. On the DIY style, so these are your Squarespaces, Wix, GoDaddies of the world, where it's totally self-service, and you jump in, you're given options for different templates, you choose a template, and then from there you kind of drag and drop different pieces of components for your website.
mhm,
You type in content yourself, you kind of build the design from a baseline on your own. And then on the agency side, there's some discussion that happens up front about what you want your website to look like. Maybe they'll provide you with some, design inspiration examples, but ultimately they'll take it, they'll build from scratch,
right.
and then from there you can request some changes. Fisherman lies somewhere in between, where, again, we're trying to handle everything on behalf of the business owner, or as much as possible. And so it's, but at the same time, it's more software enabled than an agency. So we're very automated in a lot of ways, and we really pull as much content as we can on behalf of the business owner or manager. And we also have tools where someone can make changes to their content on their own. And so I'd say a DIY tool like a Squarespace or a Wix is really ideal for someone who wants to do everything on their own. They want, maybe they have a very clear vision of what their website should look like, and they have the technical savviness to be able to build it themselves. And maybe the time, it does take time to maintain that website too, or they have someone on their team or in their family who can make those updates on behalf of the of that business, because there's always evolving trends in maintaining a website. So you got to stay on top of it. But if you're comfortable doing it, you're capable of doing it, and you have a very clear vision of what you want, then a DIY tool is a good solution. The agency model, I'd say, is better for people who are willing to spend more money and want something still really custom, professionally done in a very to spec. You know exactly what you want again, but you don't want to do it yourself. An agency might, and you're willing to pay more money, then an agency is probably the best bet for you. And again, there's lots of options out there to make that happen. For fishermen, we're really ideal for people who just don't want to handle anything on their own, and let more experts handle it for them. But there's still this collaboration that's happening on really the core elements. We're looking at a ton of different types of businesses that we work with in specific industries, so we know what works. So there's some level of trust that a business owner gives us to make those decisions, but we'll always make sure we're preserving the brand for the business and all their core content, and make it very easy for them to handle on their own. So that's how I'd break that up.
That's awesome. And I think that's a great, guideline to provide our audience today with. But I am so excited, Amit. I know you're going to share your screen now, and
Yes.
we all get to see how simple it is to kind of create a website with fishermen. I'm very excited to kind of go through that with you and me, because it's really as simple as he mentioned earlier on. For those who caught that, it's just put in some information, and we see your screen now. So thank you for
Perfect.
walking us through this. I think it's a nice treat for everybody to kind of really see the tool and how it works.
Yeah, 100%. And actually, what we'll show right now is something that anybody on this call or watching the recording can actually do during or afterwards. So I would recommend that if you're interested in checking things out. But the first step is really, we have a partnership with Alignable. So the first step is just going to our website, gofisherman.com/alignable, and we'll route you to a page that looks just like this. And this is all we need. You'll see some messaging around our free trial for any Alignable members. And all you need to do is fill out this form. So let's go through this right now. I'm just going to put my information here as the contact. I'm going to put fake contact information. But if we get your actual information, this allows us to get in touch with you, send you what your website can look like. And it's completely free to check out what the website can look like. I'll put just here. And then all we need to do is just search for your business. So as long as you're listed online as a business, we should be able to find you. And if not, then you'll get a couple particular prompts for your business name, your address, and that's all we really need to get started. So I'm just going to start with a local business in Boston. And from here, you just choose your business type. You'll see lots of options here. I'll just pick something for now. I know this is not accurate, but let's just say it's a pie shop. This is a taco shop, but you enter your information there, you click get a website, and that's it. So from here, anywhere between 5 minutes and 1 business day, you'll get an email with that will look something like this. So it's fully automated. It could be as little as minutes. You'll get an email with a link to check out your website, and you'll have a custom website for your business ready to view immediately. So here's an example of what might be produced for El Polón. And you can see we're pulling in information. This was automatically generated. We're pulling in photos. We have software that is filtering for high quality images. Similar for reviews. We'll pull in any reviews we can find online, but we'll filter to make sure they're actually good reviews. You can see that a map's been added with the location. And contact information. One of the things that we talked about earlier, making sure that there's an easy way for people to find you online. The other thing you'll notice is in this case, order online being the call to action is the primary thing people are looking for. If we scroll to the mobile view, you can see that you can see the information right here, and the content is
Oh
stacked
my gosh.
vertically,
All
as
right.
we
So
talked about.
I
So
just
right out of the gate,
I
yeah,
just need to highlight. So right out of the gate, you get your website and it's already formatted for mobile use.
yes,
That is
correct. It's formatted for all device types, all browser types,
awesome.
and there's SEO built in as well, which I think maybe we'll chat about a little bit later. It's really important. And I guess just to point out, right, like as part of this, you get this website, and you also get access to a dashboard. And if you've tried to build a website on your own, you'll notice some differences, some similarities and differences between our content editor and maybe that of a Wix or a Squarespace. We're trying to keep things as simple and as possible. And so our content editor is really focused on getting, let's say you want your hours of operation. This is your core information that you're managing right here. So you can edit your hours of operation right here. You can manage all of your content for images that'll load. Oh, I'm timed out for security reasons, so I'll log back in. But you'll see your images that you can manage right there. Second,
So I think it's wonderful because you create it for everyone, but the owners still have access to tailor it, right? They can switch their images.
correct.
They still have that flexibility. I think that's wonderful.
Absolutely. Absolutely. No, it's that you want to have the ability to do things on your own, especially if you're in a pinch, and you need something ASAP changed. You have, menu item prices are changing all the time right now because of inflation. And you want to be able to go in and update those prices on your own instantly if you need to. But you also have the option to just email or text or live chat into our support team, and our team will take care of all of that for you. That's how most of our customers interact. They'll just shoot a message over to us, and our support team will handle those changes within 24 hours. So
And
that's where you can kind of decide.
yeah, and I see here on the left bar, you also have access to analytics and
Correct.
integrations. I mean, you guys have thought of everything in here. And
That's right.
I love this. I love this. Can we talk a little bit about SEO, what it is, and is that built into your platform for folks?
Yes. Yeah. SEO stands for search engine optimization. And that's essentially what search engines like Google are looking at to help decide what results when you're searching should show up first, and the order of those results. So it's essential for a website. We really believe that a website is only as valuable as the people that are actually looking at it and searching on
Right.
it. It doesn't help you at all if you build this beautiful, complex website and nobody's ever coming to it. And so SEO is all about helping you get found. It's about, if you're a brick and mortar business, you want to have that corner location, or you want to make sure that your storefront itself stands out. It's the exact same thing. Instead of people walking down the street, though, it's people searching on Google, and that is a lot more competitive. And there are actual criteria. There's things you can do to rank higher. And so, yes, in our case, we do a lot of that SEO. It's built in, it's automated, because I would actually just a little bit of education on SEO. There's kind of two categories of of things you can do, you can invest in for SEO. There's the technical aspects of search engine optimization, and then there's the content aspects. And again, the main idea is, it makes sense that this is a concept because Google needs to figure out, they don't want people to be frustrated as they're searching. They want to show the most helpful information up front. And so if someone's searching for a certain type of service near them, there's actually a lot of things that could work, and that's where it gets competitive. The technical aspects are, for instance, making sure that your website looks good on mobile. That's important to Google because they know most people searching on Google are searching from their mobile devices. And so if a website doesn't look good on mobile, they're going to rank that lower because it'll be a worse user experience. Another example is the site speed. So a website loading really quickly, usually you have about 4 or 5 seconds to really capture that person's attention. And if a website's not loading, they're going back and they're clicking a different result. So Google knows that, and they'll dock you if your website doesn't load really quickly. This
Oh,
is an area that Fisherman excels. We have the fastest websites on the internet, we like to say. And these are some of the areas that we really invest in to make sure that website can get found. The content area, we'll do what we can. We pull content out of the gate right up front. But it's always important to invest in content. You'll notice a blog posts, tab over here. Customers can create blog posts, and on a lot of platforms that others might be using, you can do this. And we recommend this because it helps you seem more authoritative if you have content that you're producing around the kind of keywords that potential customers are searching for. And there's a whole, we can have a whole long discussion around, content writing and blog writing, but yeah, content and the technical aspects are generally the most important things. There's one other thing I'd mention that's kind of a third topic on its own. And that is just making sure that your website is linked to your Google My Business profile. I can't stress enough. I mean, every year this becomes more and more important. In some cases, over 70% of website visits will come via that Google My Business card. And so I know it can be, we've heard from a lot of our clients that it can be annoying to get all these notifications from Google. They're always asking for more information to keep things updated. But it is very important to at least have your core information, including your website, linked there. Google will see that as being credible and will send more people that way. And in our case with Fisherman, we have an integration with Google. So we do manage all that content for our customers. So if someone authorizes Fisherman, we'll synchronize all website content with their Google profile, make sure it always stays up to date. And that helps a lot with SEO as well. I know it's a ton of content, so I'll pause.
No, I think it's wonderful. I've been looking, we have a ton of questions in our chat, and I've been seeing
Great.
some comments, and everybody's saying you have so much knowledge. So for our audience members, no worries. Amit's going to be back next month with another topic on website development. So yes, he has a ton of knowledge. I'm just so happy that he's able to be here with us today and to really share with us how easy and simple it is to go to his website and just start your own website. And I know, I mean, some folks, I saw this question come up, what if people have an existing website? Is it simple to transfer that over?
Yeah, that's a great question. We do, as part of what we're doing behind the scenes, once we get a submission like this, is we are searching for an existing website and pulling whatever content we can have there. So to some extent, yes, and we're constantly working on those tools to make that an easier process. There are some websites that we just cannot pull content from. And so I will say that, in some cases, we'll still need the business owner to send us the core content. We can go through, if there's, text or images, we can pull all of that. But if there's anything that, is a separate asset, some certain graphics that you want to send us and use, it might be at that onboarding process where you send that information over. But we do a rough pass up front of looking for an existing website and pulling content when we can. The other thing I'll mention is if you have very specific layout preferences for how everything is oriented on your current website and you're looking for a new one, we will not mirror that existing website no matter what. In some cases, we can match some aspects of it, but that's an expectation we'll usually try to set, which is, we've been doing a lot of research and we've had a ton of customers use our sites. There's certain layouts that we know just perform better. And that's the reason people sign up with Fisherman, is they want us to handle some of this. And that's a trade-off that we make, is we're not going to do everything to spec. That's what an agency is for. But, there might be some layout changes. We'll keep all the content there. We'll make it look better, mobile optimize it, add that SEO, and then give you some more support.
Excellent. No, I love that. So, before we transition to our Q&A session, I do want to let folks know that, Fisherman does have a community. They've created a community group here on Alignable where you'll have access to exclusive events with them, one-on-one office hours, guides, tutorials. You can ask them your most pressing questions on how to boost your web presence. I mean, it's a wonderful community to join. If you've opted in, you will be added to this community tomorrow. And if you haven't already, you can find the link in the link to join in our chat. So just make sure to keep your eye on the chat box. And if you're interested, you can go ahead and join the community. Also, if you have any specific questions relating to Fisherman, you make sure to post them in this community as well, because they will get back to you. They will be monitoring that community. And it's a wonderful, wonderful group to really join. So with that being said, I want to kind of jump into our Q&A session and invite my colleague here Chuck Casto to join us. Chuck is the head of PR and corporate communications here at Alignable, and he is actually going to take our audience through the Q&A session. I know he's been monitoring all those questions, and he has a list of questions for you, Amit. So I know you're going to be ready. And Chuck, I'll hand it over to you.
I have to say, Amit, we have more questions from this session than we've had in the last 20 sessions we've done. Wow. So there are a lot. We won't get to all of them probably, but please, join the group, folks. Ask them again in the group if they weren't answered here. But a lot of great questions. So the first thing that I'd like to dive into is a little bit more about why SEO is so important for a website.
Yeah, absolutely. And I touched on, a few aspects of how to help with your SEO, but ultimately the main reason is that, search engines like Google really own the real estate for, that websites live on. So I love the analogy of the physical storefronts on a town street that people might be seeing, different types of businesses they can purchase from. Yeah, Main Street, right? Exactly, with the digital web. And the reason SEO is important is because unlike walking down a street and having kind of equal opportunity to some extent, other than the particular location, the SEO aspect is a lot more competitive. And you'll also see some sponsored ads where people are really buying for temporary place on search results. It's just a lot more competitive, and there are specific things you can do to rank higher. And Google really controls that real estate, in particular Google, a lot of the search engines, but Google is most of the traffic, and they really control what gets displayed. And if your website doesn't show up on the first couple of pages of those search results for various, you have to remember, no matter every type of query in Google is going to yield a different set of results, but picking those top types of keywords that people are searching for and making sure your website is, responding to the rules of Google and showing up as high as possible is essential for people finding you online. And we know that in certain industries, 85%, upwards of 90% in some cases of in-person visits and purchases are now starting online from a discovery and search perspective. So it is essential, if you're trying to grow your business right now, it's essential that you play by those rules.
Okay, that's terrific. And I know we have a few more questions about SEO, and I'll get to those, but one of our members also asked about how important the domain name is for SEO or other reasons.
Yeah, it's a great question. A lot of people will think that, they'll say that their Facebook page is their website, or sometimes if you are signed up with a service that's providing, appointment booking or reservations or online ordering or quoting, they might provide a subdomain, where it's on that company that's providing the services domain, and then it has a page for your business. It makes a really big difference to have your own custom domain. Most people will go to GoDaddy for this. Fisherman, we provide this for free as part of our it's included in our packages for businesses. And it is important. It makes Google, it's one of those things that Google looks at to mark credibility of the business. It means you have control over the content, and therefore Google will think that any content on that site is more authoritative. And so if you have a custom domain, maybe it's chuckspizza.com, and then you link that to Google on Google My Business, that alone will tell Google, all right, this is a business that has they're controlling their content, and we have it linked to our business. That's going to make them know that these are better results to show the people who are searching online. So it's very important to have a custom domain. And just, a note on Fisherman, again, we include this as what we do. We'll even make recommendations around what to use. And then if you have an existing domain on a GoDaddy or some other platform, we'll connect that to the website that we provide. And just as a quick recommendation, if a lot of times your businessname.com is already taken, a recommendation we always use is you can append maybe your state code, if it's Georgia, GA, or MA for Massachusetts after the business name. You want to keep it as short as you can, but it should still be self-evident, what do you do as a business? And those are some of the things that, you should play around with.
Okay, that's fantastic. So this is a great question from Mark. And again, it's along the lines of the domain name, but listen to this one. So he's asking how important is it? He's asked that, we've covered that. But then he's also asked, saying he's had the same domain name for 23 years. How does that influence SEO? And my question on top of that is, shouldn't he keep that domain name? I mean, isn't there value in having it up for 23 years?
Yeah, there is. I mean, in general, having a website up and a domain up for a longer period of time, again, it's that credibility that it brings. So as long as people aren't complaining about it and getting confused, it's what we would recommend as well, is keeping it. Now, if people are getting confused, a strategy, he could use, or anyone can use, is buying a new domain that they like, and you can forward traffic from one domain. You can point it to the new one. And it's not necessarily the best long-term strategy, but it can be effective in the interim to make sure people who remember that original domain, they're still ending up in the right place. So forwarding is a good strategy that people can use to maintain a couple different domains, or work through that transition.
Wow, so much knowledge. This is great. I am so glad we're recording this one. Okay, so Dave is a coffee roaster in Southwest Florida, and he answered that he's confident in his website. He thinks he's doing most of the right things, if not all of them, Dave. I'm just putting words in your mouth here. But he also says, I'm interested in increasing our traffic. That's what he's really having the biggest issue with. What would you tell Dave?
Yeah, it's a great question. So there's three different types of like website traffic. There's technically four, but three main categories that that we monitor for analytics purposes. Where do people come from to land on their website? And each of those are different levers you can pull to try to increase traffic. So the first is direct, and this is a smaller category. This is people who know the domain, like we were just talking about, and they're typing it right into the as the URL and pressing enter, they're going straight to the website. There's also referral traffic. So this is usually coming from social media, for instance. It's the biggest category. If your website's linked onto your Facebook page or your Yelp page, or whatever it might be, or it's mentioned in press, and and you're linking from there, or on Alignable, for instance, or whatever it might be. There's that source of traffic. And then lastly, there's organic. And organic is what we've been talking about with SEO, with search engine traffic, where people are typing in keywords for something else, and then they're finding that website after searching on Google. Each of those are levers that can be pulled to increase traffic. We've been talking at length about that organic piece, and I'd say that's the most sustainable long-term way to grow. And it's the one that gives you the most leverage. But the referral links is another big one. The direct, you can only do so much of. Usually that comes when you have a lot of print advertising and your URL is listed on there and people are typing in directly that way. And QR codes is another example. But the referral traffic is one you can play with as well. This is making sure that you're doing social media content, and posting, building a following online, getting some press, doing other types of marketing efforts that link your website somewhere. And the more Google sees that your website's being linked and people are coming to it, it actually helps reinforce that organic search piece as well. So it does take time, but a lot of marketing does take time too. You sort of do the activities, and then month over month, you start to see a bit of that, that snowball collecting snow.
Excellent. And you were absolutely right. From my corner of the world, and getting links in major publications, major sites, that does a great deal for SEO and traffic, all of that. So great point. We've got Callie. Callie wanted to know how, and this has to do with measurement. Okay, so this is an interesting question. Callie wanted to know, how does she know if her website is actually doing everything or most of everything it should be doing for her? And what are the best ways to measure that?
That's a great question. So there's some tools online. There's a lot of different ones where you can basically get an SEO audit of your website, and they're free. So I can try to link to one. I don't know if there's a follow-up that goes out, or maybe I can throw it in the chat, but There's a lot of tools that you can use. If you just search on Google for free website SEO audit, I'm sure you'll see different options where all you need to do is type in your URL, and then they'll give you a report on your performance, your SEO performance overall, and then even give, in some cases, some recommendations for things you can do to improve it. So for instance, maybe the social media links are outdated that are linked on your website, or it's not mobile optimized, or it's not accessible. Accessibility is a really important new trend that is affecting the performance of websites on Google. And so I would recommend that because it'll give you a report on what you can do to improve. It'll give you a score. And that's a really good way to just kind of slowly hack away at some of the things that help. And yeah, I mean, on the Fisherman side, we're always auditing all of our websites and figuring out what are the at large ways we can make sure everyone's being helped.
So you end up handling a lot of the things that give the rest of us headaches.
That's the idea. Yeah.
Okay. Okay. Very good. That answers about 70 of these questions. But anyway, let me dive into a few more here. If I design and publish my own website, how do I amend keywords in SEO to elevate my rank? And I know that's a very loaded question, but I'm going to throw it out there.
Yeah, it's a good question. And so it does depend, technically speaking, it kind of depends on what platform you've built this on. And, some platforms give you more ability to go in and edit metadata, meta titles and descriptions, which is some of the stuff that, is being referenced here, I think. Some of these platforms give you the direct ability to do that yourself. Some platforms don't. So it depends on that platform you're using. First of all, how in depth can you actually personally go and manipulate, the things that'll help you from an SEO potential. But generally speaking, you want to first do a bit of SEO keyword research to find out what are people searching for, or what do you want people to, where do you want people to end up on your website from based on what kinds of searches? If you're, again, like Chuck's Pizza, maybe it is, pizza near me or pizza in city or in hometown or whatever residence you're located in a bunch of different areas, thinking through those keywords and then mapping those keywords to content that is written directly on the site, but also at the meta level. And this is this is where it gets very technical. And again, some platforms give you the ability to go into the robots.txt files and really edit some of the stuff that's important for SEO, but it just depends. It's very dependent on the platform itself.
Okay. Now we got a question here from Richard, and I want to dig into a few of these from different industries. Okay. We've got Richard, and he says, any thoughts or ideas for artists and crafters who have websites and where they're really used as a digital portfolio for them, as well as a shop? And we do have a couple of other questions from artists saying, well, how do I make the jump to e-commerce from having the sort of the portfolio?
Yeah, great question. And I have a little bit of a background in art as well and selling some art. So this is a personally resonant question. And I would say that the most important thing, and this isn't just for folks who have very visually, where the visual is the most important aspect, but all types of industries, visual is very important. People purchase with their eyes and make decisions with their eyes. And this is why the branding on your website is important, and making sure that it's kept modern and up to date and sticking with the modern trend. This stuff is important just because people really do make judgment calls really quickly about whether or not they align with the brand. And a lot of this stuff is happening in that subconscious level. But specifically to this question, I'd say just making these things as image heavy as possible is important. You want to, again, have very clear, a lot of times people might be coming to the site not just to browse, but looking for something very specific. So good categories as tabs, where it is, people are able to quickly filter down into a subcategory that they're looking for, making it really image centric, though, I would say primarily. And then ideally, they don't need to go from a browsing tab and then separately, if they're looking to purchase something, they have to go to a shop tab and they see all the same content. In an ideal world, that's all connected, because if someone clicks an image to zoom in, ideally they have the ability to purchase right there too, or add to a wish list, or take some action that brings them closer to becoming a customer. That is the goal. That's what you really want. So, keeping that as one step abstracted hurts your ability to convert more customers. And so I would recommend that the shop is directly connected to the gallery that you're putting out. And actually, we built a website when we were an agency. I can share a really good example of an artist website that we put together back in the day. This isn't something that is Fisherman created, but I think just gives a sense of bringing all these things together. A lot of white space, image focused. This is a local Boston area artist, and you can kind of see how these images come out. And when you click, it really zooms in, and you have the ability to go into more detail. So those are a couple of things I would recommend. And I do think an e-commerce cart is really critical.
Okay, terrific. And again, overlapping that right then and there, so people don't need to go from your gallery to your shop. Because again, exactly. One of the things you're saying really resonates with those of us who have been, working in startups and all of that, websites for a long time, is you only have a couple of seconds to grab people.
Yeah.
So, and if they stay for 2 minutes, you're in really great shape.
Yeah. Attentions have never been shorter.
Exactly. So that's where the visuals and the right phrasing, all of that's important. So I have a question here from Mansoor. He asks, how do you rate the web designers like WordPress or Big Daddy? How and again, maybe you look at those as using different terminology.
No, I honestly do think different solutions are better for everybody. And there are some tools that I'd say, I personally think are higher performing. For our own website, for the Fisherman website, for instance, the use case of Fisherman, we're a software company. We have a lot of different types of things we need on our website. We worked with an agency that built that website using Webflow. Our software underlying was great for a certain time, but now we have complexities that are slightly different for our specific marketing goals than the companies that we serve on a daily basis. And so we went through our own process of figuring out what's the best solution. And we needed something where we have a highly technical team. They can go into the weeds and make a lot of changes, but also, was plugged into certain marketing channels that we were interested in. And we had lots of our own software we needed to build into it as well. So, that was the decision criteria for us. Very different from, a team that, doesn't have those types of resources or has different goals and objectives with their resource. I have seen that a lot of these services, Wix, for instance, and even GoDaddy, they've evolved a lot. I mean, these are big companies, much bigger than Fisherman, with thousands of employees around the world. And from a technology and tooling ability, I'd say for the most part, you can kind of do everything that you need to be able to do. It just can be complicated to do it, and definitely time intensive. The trade-offs that they make, which make them a great fit for a lot of people, is giving you the ability to do everything yourself. The trade-off is it can be technically complicated and you have to do it all yourself, but that is really great for people who want to. So it's really, it's tough to pick the best solution or ones that we recommend. And a lot of times we tell people Fisherman's not the right fit for you. But yeah, I'd say they all have come a long way. The ones we see, do some great things for some folks are like Wix is a super popular one. And I think, GoDaddy has been around for a while, but they've been making a lot of different updates as well.
Okay, wonderful. So we have somebody say, and you talked about this a little bit before, but I think it bears repeating. How do you help with the load time? You were talking about, if it takes forever for your site to load. And by the way, what does forever look like to Google?
Anything more. So Google, one of the latest things, it could be, it's in the milliseconds. They get it down to the millisecond of knowing, but no more than 5 seconds. But even 2 seconds, I've been seeing a lot recently. 2 seconds, any more than 2 seconds to really load is a good approach. So what we do to help with these types of things, there's a couple of things. So first of all, we're always investing in the, underlying for the websites that get built. Our software is built fully from scratch. We're not leveraging any existing CMS platforms like a WordPress, where everything's built from scratch. And so we're using a lot of the modern technologies. I saw one question in the chat around our stack. I mean, this might be too technical, but we're using Amazon Web Services for our hosting, so it scales really well. We use, Django, which is a Python library, and then we also use React, which is a really modern library for JavaScript. And it allows us to, in the way that we generate our websites, allows us to, this is going to get super technical, but pre-compile these websites. Right. So rather than every single time someone goes to one of our clients' websites, it loading or having to, reload, it's preloaded. And so it can, it can come up much faster. And once you go to it once, it's such a small file size that it saves in the browser's cache, which just allows it to load much faster. So the file size of all the code is really small. It's really efficient, and that helps it load faster. Another more modern thing that we've implemented is something called lazy load. And this is where some content might load faster than other content. This is also really important because a lot of times when a browser is looking to, serve a website, it's going to wait till everything is ready and then it'll show that. But that's why, like we were talking about, attention spans are short. So if you can show some content through lazy load up front, a few images, for instance, it gives the user some more time to digest before everything else is ready to surface. So those are a couple of things that we do.
Okay, so Bhupathi asked, do you, and this is of you guys specifically, so do you just manage the websites that you create, or do you do some of the digital marketing around them, or, and how much of it is, how much of the graphic design do you tackle? Sort of basically just a quick overview of what you guys are able to do for our, we had hundreds of people on this right now, what, in a nutshell, what you can do for somebody.
Definitely. So, what we do and what we do not do. So we will do everything related to that kind of core website. It's making sure that it is designed, that it has the core content there, that content management system to be able to make changes. There's different integrations like social media integrations and Google My Business, which we talked about, that we have built in to make sure that essentially all the different platforms where your content exists online, we are synchronizing and making sure that it's all up to date. And then we do provide the domain, we do all the hosting, we do site security. All of those aspects are included. SEO is another area that we've talked about where, that's included as part of the website offering. On the digital marketing side, beyond the data synchronization, we don't do too much proactive digital marketing work for our clients. The main reason is our strategy. I mean, how we really operate as a business is to try to help as many as we can. And this, as soon as, and that's why our prices are much lower than, most offerings in our world as well. But the trade-off is we can't do as much bespoke, one-off work. We can handle anything that's content related, but as soon as we get into more digital marketing, we provide advice, we provide recommendations, and we'll slowly, I think, as we grow as a company too, we'll do a lot more there. The area we've been investing a lot in right now is, I guess the two areas are e-commerce and design. So we now have an e-commerce product, and we're helping to support businesses really transacting and selling things on our sites, and then providing more design options as well as another area that we are investing in. So I think digital marketing comes next. We'd love to be able to run ads for our clients, to do more email and text marketing for our clients. That's coming soon, but for now we make recommendations and really make sure they can integrate existing services with the website.
That is fantastic. So in terms of pricing, this is very interesting. We had somebody bring up, this is Nikki, asking, can you build a good website for 10 to 15,000? And she's asking because so many companies she's been looking at want 50 to 100,000 to build a professional website. And that sounds pretty high to me. What do you think?
Yeah, again, it really depends on the type of business that you're operating. But if you're operating a small business and, maybe if it's in an industry that where there's other businesses like you, yeah, and you don't have a ton of custom software or features, and it does really come down to that. There is how much customization do you want? How much, how complex are these features and the design that you're looking for? I guess I would need to know what type of business she's working on, but you certainly can pay a lot less and get a really good quality website. Absolutely. If you're paying an agency, you should be able to get a really high quality website for a lot less than that. But again, it depends. How custom are you talking? Are you the only one in the world that does what you do? Are you asking for a product that can do a lot of crazy things on the software side? Then maybe. I mean, our software, for instance, has been built over the course of 3 or 4 years, and with a large technical team, and we can't even put a price on that. But if that was being requested to build, then maybe someone can charge a lot more for it. But if you're looking for a site that's mostly content driven, in an industry that has some comparables, then you should be able to get a really good website for a lot less.
That's great. Okay, well, unfortunately, we're just about at the end of our time. So thank you to everybody for asking those questions, and your answers have been fantastic. I think we could make this a 5-hour webinar if we wanted to, but I'm going to toss it back to Victoria right now to wrap up. And thanks again, everyone.
Thank you so much, Chuck. And Amit, oh my gosh, what can I say? You have so much information. Our audience has loved it. The comments have been absolutely wonderful. To our audience, remember to join, Fisherman's Community Group. You can post your questions there and connect with Amit's team. It's a wonderful group to join. And also, be on the lookout for the links that we're sharing in our chat. We always want to keep you informed of updated upcoming events, and also there's going to be a link on there about Fisherman's promotion to Alignable members. Amit, thank you so much for participating today and sharing all of your wonderful knowledge. It's been so much fun, and I know we gave you so many questions, so thank you so much for answering those for our audience members. And to our wonderful members, thank you for attending. We hope you take advantage of Fisherman's wonderful resources and recommendations that Amit shared with you. Remember to check out the links, and we here at Alignable wish you a wonderful day. Until next time, thank you all.